Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is Cinematics.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's another episode of Cinematics, a new week of Cinematics episode 256. We are covering movies that are opening up for the week of Friday, August 23rd, the year 2024. The movies, the features covered on this episode include the Western Place of Bones. Eric Holmes, what is it, Place of Bones? It's a what movie? What kind of movie? A bleeping awesome movie? What? Place of Bones?
Yes, it is.
Yes, family show. Place of Bones. Number 2 is Between the Temples. I'll have that review for you guys. The Other Lorenz, and also the documentary that I am so mad that I did not get to see, Sugarcane. Eric Holmes will enlighten you folks, as well as Bruce Perky towards the tail end of this episode, but he will enlighten everyone whether or not they should see this documentary, Sugarcane. Without bearing the lead, Eric Holmes, should people see Sugarcane, yes or no?
We'll get to that.
Oh, I wanted to blow it up, and Eric Holmes wants us to actually have a credible weekly movie review podcast. How dare you? I was giving you the out to blow up this entire episode and just give us our ratings, and we can go within 5 minutes because you're going to be slingshotted on another interview in about 20 minutes, right, Eric? What is this? What's going on here?
Yeah, doing an interview with the director of Slingshot. And I believe you did as well, an interview with Corin Nemec for Place of Bones, which we'll be talking about shortly. I cannot wait.
This is the thing, Eric. Okay, you and I are pretty much brothers in arms with movies. I would say, can you typify? We have how can I say this? We tend to like these movies that are indie-driven action movies that maybe Bruce Perky will never like. Am I fair on this? And it's
yeah. I don't think that's what's going on with Place of Bones, though. Oh. I think Bruce would dig it.
Oh, okay. So this is one thing that you think we probably dropped the ball. Maybe Bruce Perky should have seen Place of Bones. Are you thinking?
Yeah. Right. I also think, like, if you want to, if we have time, please, can we do a spoiler?
Oh yeah, okay. We'll do a Place of Bones. Look, listeners for Cinematics, I was gonna family show, but I wanted to say something. We're basically we're screwing the pooch here because we might just end the show within 2 minutes just so we can do a Place of Bones spoilers. I am not complaining. Okay, so we'll get to that in a second. Eric Holmes, a little bit of personality, a little bit of persona, a little bit of stuff from the last 7 days. What have you been up to? What's been going on? What do you want to say?
I've been working a lot. I did not get to watch as many of the movies this week as I'd like to, but I watched a couple. I went back and watched.
Deceptive. That's deceptive because you're not giving yourself credit. You're saying you were not able to watch a lot of movies this week, when in fact your weekly schedule is you actually see as many movies as me and Bruce. You're just forward thinking. Can you talk to our listeners about that? You're watching movies several weeks in advance, aren't you? Are you not?
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about for the show. I mean, the opening, the Cinematics. There's however many movies come out a year, however many a week. You got to be an addict to see all that, and I am. And I've been, I've been going through withdrawals, but yeah.
Is it tough for you though because you see movies several weeks earlier than me and Bruce, and by the time the review gets around, you're 2 weeks removed from that, really, because you're getting a lot of these long lead movie reviews.
Yeah. And it's cool that I had to watch him early, but also at the same time, I got old man brain. So it's like, all right, we're going to talk about this one movie. I'm like, oh, crap. What was that? That's right. That's the one with so-and-so. Okay. Yeah. Now I remember. It takes me a while to get back into the groove of things.
So listeners, it is very tough for Eric Holmes. It's very tough for me and also very tough for Bruce because in a sense, we're trying to provide a service each week, spotlight indie film or just movies coming out on a given Friday. That being said, there are so many movies that are coming out on a Friday. So all three of us, we're just circling or cycling through all of these movies that by the next week, we're almost forgetting them. No matter if we love them or hate them, we just have to see so many movies that hopefully you listeners can actually get some value on a now basis on movies you want to watch on a given weekend. I hope so, Eric, right?
I actually talk about this. I'm kind of thinking of like what Anderson says about like watching a bunch. Like, I don't know if we get the movies the full, like the way we have to do it. I don't know that we give them their full credit because You watch like say one movie a week. You get to let that movie stew and think about it for a while.
I 100% agree.
Get that. We try our hardest, but that's not always the case. But at the same time, like if we recommend something and it sticks with us, it's probably a good one or a really bad one that you can consider one.
That right. I would say Cinematics is more of a lickety split, wham bam, thank you, fam type of family show. Right? Wham bam, thank you, family, right?
Cinematics, you're too hump jump for movies.
Right. And what hopefully, if you want to let things breathe, go listen to Mitch Burns' The Hollywood Persona. Listen to Middle Class Film Class. They have some really great stuff over at Middle Class Film Class. They let things breathe. They let things, like Eric said, stew. Of course, the Film Vault, they watch a lot of the bigger movies, and that's not a knock on them. But if you want to actually have some really great conversations and stuff like that, all of these, the Film Vault, the Hollywood Persona, Middle Class Film Class, if you want the very wham bam thank you fam stuff, you get right to what Cinematics, right to the meat of things, right? And you're going to forget about us seconds later, but at least you'll have a couple of movies, hopefully, in your pocket on a given week. Hopefully, right, Eric? Is that our hope?
Yeah, we're going to fill your socks quickly.
Fill your socks with some bones. That movie being Place of Bones. Here we go. It's a Western. Hits theaters and digital August 23rd. It is directed by a filmmaker I had no idea about. I think she's very talented. Her name is Audrey Cummings. Here is a plot synopsis for Place of Bones. Quote, on a remote ranch, a mother played by Heather Graham and her daughter played by Brielle Robillard. I've never seen her before. She's very good in this movie. Mother and daughter, they're fighting for survival because a wounded outlaw played by Corin Nemec. Eric and I just interviewed Corin Nemec within like the last couple of hours. So a wounded outlaw named Calhoun, he ventures into the ranch. He's injured, and mother and daughter they're trying to nurse his wounds, even though they know he's an outlaw. The problem is he's wounded because of a botched possible bank robbery or situation, and his own gang, they are trying to track him down because he might have gold or treasure or something, a secret hiding with this wounded outlaw. So it's pretty much an interesting movie. There's intersecting stories. Even though you might think it's mother, daughter, and outlaw, it might be a three-hander in this remote ranch, there is also a side story where you get to see these outlaws going after the person who escaped them. And eventually there will be the inevitable showdown amongst all of these parties. The ensemble includes Tom Hopper, who is the leader of the outlaws. There's also Cowboy Cerrone, if you like, what is it, UFC or that kind of stuff. So he's a very popular person. So that is Place of Bones. It's a Western, theaters and digital August 23rd. I interviewed Audrey Cummings and I complimented her about how lean and mean the Western is. It really does pack a punch. Eric was mentioning about spoiler stuff. I will definitely cede to his demand because that's a really good demand. We will talk spoilers later in the episode when we're done. We're not going to put it on. We're going to put it for our Patreon listeners first and then release it a week later. Place of Bones, Eric Holmes, give us your full take on the movie.
I love this movie. Definitely, you said it's a three-hander or a 6-5-legger, maybe. But this movie reminded me a lot of Old Henry. We're not going to do a bunch of extraneous stuff. We're just going to focus in on what the story is, which Corin Nemec, Hester, Brielle Robillard.
Yeah, Robillard.
Yeah, she finds him, gets her mom, played by Heather Graham, everyone's great in this. Heather Graham, it was like, for the longest time, it was like, it's a roller girl. And then it's good kind of seeing her kind of have this kind of great character. And anyway, they take him, they put him on a little blanket and drag him to the house. And by the time he wakes up, they find out everything. It's like, robbed the bank, or they robbed, I assume it's a bank. They robbed something and he's got a bunch of money on him. I'm like, I don't care about that. And, those are ill-gotten gains. And he's like, well, there's people after me. And then Heather Graham's character is like, what did you bring? Like, we're trying to help you. What kind of hell is coming towards us that we needed to know about? And it's a bunch of people that were supposed to meet Corin Nemec, and they're going to find him. And the whole last half of the movie is basically kind of a standoff with them in the house and them outside the house. It's just very, very basic, very focused. Very damn good. I love this movie.
Eric, you're
and we will do the spoilers, but I can say this movie sticks the landing hard. When that thing happened at the end, I'm like, oh my God, this is great. I love this. I already loved it, but oh my God, I love it even more.
Eric, you are an aspiring filmmaker. You've written your own screenplays as well, and eventually you will be directing. The movie Place of Bones, the DP, I don't know his name. I got to look it up on IMDb. I cannot pronounce his name.
Andre Sekula.
Okay.
He did he worked with Tarantino a lot.
Right, Tarantino, he worked with him on Reservoir Dogs and at least Pulp Fiction. So at least those two movies with Tarantino. How was this movie shot from your point of view? With a limited budget, I thought Audrey Cummings and the DP, the production, I think they did a really good job at making this indie film look good. Do you agree with that?
Hard to say because I wasn't really paying attention to that. I was just so immersed in everything. I will say, actually, I probably shouldn't. The cinematographer also directed Hypercube. We won't hold that against him because he is good.
I've never seen Hypercube. I guess I won't see Hypercube. So,
but regardless, I mean it does look good, but I wasn't really focused on that. I was just kind of involved in the story and where's it going next? And then the standoff happens and there's so there's them in the house, the people out kind of on that hill, and then there's like a little barn or something.
Right.
It's the whole situation there, and it's just it's set. Oh, Andre Sekula also sent on the Ritual Killer, but anyway,
we love the Ritual Killer. We love that, yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't even paying attention to the cinematography, and I think in some ways, like you watch a movie like Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, the cinematography is so good, it kind of gets in the way, but in a good way.
Fair. Yeah.
This is a situation where it's just doing its job. Like great editing. If you don't notice the edit, it's probably a good edit. If you don't notice the cinematography, it's probably good cinematography.
Very good point, Eric. Very good point. Place of Bones. Eric is praising the heck out of it. I can't really add anything to Eric's review other than I co-sign on everything he said. It's just I'm a huge Western fan, and this reminds me of just a really well done Western film. If you are a fan of the genre, Eric mentions the final act. We will talk about that in the spoilers. That's a definite standout, but that does not negate everything else before. Like Eric said, it's a really well done Western for its budget, and really love the performances. I was initially going to give it 4 stars. I'm giving Place of Bones 4.5 stars. It's actually an upscale from the last couple of weeks since I've seen it. Really, really love this movie. Eric Holmes, your rating and final thoughts on Place of Bones.
I'm not quite 6.9 on this.
Sure.
But I think I am 5 on this. I would watch this again. I really love Heather Graham. Really love Corin Nemec. Love all the actors in
Gail Robillard, we don't know who she is. She's very good in this movie. She's so good.
And the way they present all the characters, and just this is just a really damn good movie. And I'm afraid, I really fear that we may be overselling this, because I feel like this is going to be one of those movies, and there have been many where we'll watch them and at least I'll be like, this movie's awesome, and then it comes out and people are like, it's not that great. I'm like, oh God, what the hell is wrong with everyone? I wish you could see the same movie I did, but yeah, this is, I would say, if you like Old Henry, give this a shot. I think I like Old Henry a little better.
Sure.
But I like this one a whole lot.
Okay, so that is Place of Bones. We both love the movie. I gave it 4.5 stars. Eric gave it 5 stars, maybe a couple of steps before 6.9 stars, but I don't know. Yes.
Audrey Cummings, Jim Cummings, I don't think they're related, but maybe that last name is just, if Greg Cummings decides to make a movie, perhaps it's going to be awesome.
Oh, right, perhaps. So yeah, director Audrey Cummings, her next film is this fall, and she will be doing another Western. She's very talented. We'll see. Yeah, I'm into again. But so for now, Place of Bones in theaters and on digital, August 23rd. Another movie that is coming out, opens nationwide August 23rd, is a film called Between the Temples. Eric Holmes, are you a fan of Carol Kane, best known for Taxi, or Jason Schwartzman? He's best known for those Rushmore or Wes Anderson movies. Just both of those actors. Have you been a fan of their works? Just rifling through your brain about movies that you've seen from them? Or
I've seen the TV show Taxi. Jason Schwartzman. I don't hate him. I don't love him. Like when he shows up, it's like, oh, it's probably gonna be all right.
do you like Dolly De Leon? Do you remember Dolly De Leon? She is a
Nope.
Filipina actress who played a very big part in a movie we all loved called Ghostlight. She was in Ghostlight, Filipina actress in
Okay.
Ghostlight, and she was one of the members of that acting troupe. Remember, she's really helping him out. So she was very good in that movie. Anyways, Between the Temples, I just mentioned some of the actors in this movie. Jason Schwartzman plays Ben. He is a 40-something cantor who just lost his voice and possibly is having problems with his faith. His two Jewish mothers are played by Carolyn Aaron and Dolly De Leon. Not the problem with Ben, the thing that is really making Ben depressed is his wife, his best-selling author wife, passed away maybe a year or so ago after she slipped and fell on the ice in their neighboring upstate New York town. So he's still in the midst of that tragedy, understandably so. But the problem is he's losing his faith. He's lost his voice until he bumps into during a night at the bar. He loves having mudslides. I don't even know what a mudslide is. I've never had a mudslide. It's a sort of like a chocolate alcohol drink. Eric, I don't know.
Kind of. It's basically just like a landslide, but a wet landslide.
They're not, they don't taste good. I've never had a mudslide. Mudslides are very
Oh, you're talking about the drink. Yeah. Yeah. It's something with chocolate and I have no idea.
yeah. I don't think I'll ever try a mudslide. I don't know. But anyways, Ben loves mudslides. He's at his local bar and he bumps into his grade school music teacher, played by Carol Kane, and they strike up a friendship because she starts taking care of him that night when she helps him and he's a little bit drunk that night and he gets into a fight. So because of that encounter, that grade school music teacher, again played by Carol Kane, she asked Ben that at her age, she's elderly, she wants to be enrolled as an adult bat mitzvah student. So the rest of the film has Ben and his former teacher becoming friends as he guides her on this journey to become a bat mitzvah student and have her own bat mitzvah. Obviously, the difference in age causes a little bit of pressure from their respective families. Are wondering, are they together? Are they friends? Why is this elderly woman spending time with this cantor? It's a very interesting relationship. The movie is co-written and directed by Nathan Silver. The other co-writer is C. Mason Wells. I love Jason Schwartzman. I love Carol Kane. So if you are a fan of either actors, you will be in the bag for Between the Temples. Here's the thing about this movie, though. I think it's shot on 16 millimeter. Eric mentioned the editing behind Place of Bones. The editing in Between the Temples is sometimes very in your face and at times hectic. And it might not really, some people might not like the editing style or the filmmaking style of Between the Temples. This was totally my jam. I really loved it. There is a Shabbat dinner towards the third act that maybe lasts for 20-ish minutes. That is a straight up classic where you just see people on the table just getting tense and tense as the camera cuts from one character to the other. There's overlapping dialogue. The energy just ramps up. This is a type of humor that is very acquired, and it's a very specific type of humor. I really fell in love with Between the Temples. I will see this again. Carol Kane and Schwartzman have great chemistry. The ending is very resonant and moving and subtle. This Between the Temples is one of my favorite films of 2024. This movie makes me want to go see Carol Kane's previous, like as much as I can, most of her work. She was in a movie, Eric, from the 70s called When a Stranger Calls. It's a genre film. I still haven't seen that movie. I hear that's a good movie. But one of her earlier films is a classic film called Hester Street, black and white movie. I think Immigration Story. I saw that in high school, have loved her ever since. But this, just from what little I know of Carol Kane's career, this should be one of her best performances. And it's great to see her front and center in this dramedy. And wow, I hope this movie gets a lot of attention. Between the Temples, starring Jason Schwartzman and Carol Kane, just pretty much a perfect movie in my opinion. Again, acquired taste for some people may not really dig the vibe of Between the Temples, but I was all over it. Opens nationwide in theaters August 23rd. My rating for Between the Temples is 5 stars. Love this movie so much. So, all right, so that is that. Eric Holmes, you have a documentary called Sugarcane. And I see here it's the debut feature documentary from Julian Brave Noisecat and Emily Cassie. And it's an epic cinematic portrait of a community during a moment of international reckoning. I got this link for us like maybe a couple of weeks ago. I just haven't gotten to it. I thought this was a documentary that we could all really not enjoy, but really it would be something that would stick with us. I don't know. Can you tell us about what Sugarcane's about, and did this documentary stick with you, Eric?
Yeah, enjoy is definitely not the word for this.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, bad choice of words.
Given the
horrible.
But anyway, this is IMDb, an investigation into the abuse and missing children at an Indian reservation school sparks a reckoning on a nearby sugarcane reserve. This documentary is really frustrating. So the story is there are some kids a long time ago were abused, maybe burned alive, maybe sexually abused. It's a family show, but tell your kids because they need to know about this stuff. But there's something to do with the Catholic Church involved in this, and they go and follow a couple of survivors of that, the people that survived the execution or whatever went on. Why this is frustrating is that it took like 40 minutes into the documentary to really dig into what this is about and start really asking questions and start bringing stuff up. The first 40 minutes was getting into like the Indian culture and stuff, which is interesting, but that would be interesting for a different documentary. We need to get to what is the point of this? Let's get to that and let's go hard on that early on. And they did not do that. They got, it was just kind of like they kind of gave you a little, here's a little taste, but look, they're doing this Indian ritual, and here's a shot of the mountains. Isn't that cool? I'm like, wait, didn't you just say something about kids being burned alive? Oh yeah, we'll get to that. But first, here's a shot of the river or whatever. And we talked about editing. This is probably really bad editing. I would say this documentary would do well to go back, because I'm guessing they have the footage to tell the story. They need to go back and focus on what the story is and cut that story together.
Was all that table setting within those 40 minutes?
No.
Though it detracted from the actual
event. Totally detracted from it. And it got to the point where, like, by the time we got to what the story was, because I wanted to know that whole 40 minutes, I'm leaning in going, what is this? What's going on? What's happening? And they just hold back with a bunch of kind of useless shots. And
do you have any idea why they did that? Maybe creatively, can you see maybe or justify? Was it just to set up the atmosphere, or?
My guess would be that they knew the story. They knew the story going in. So when they cut it together, they're watching it from that perspective. They're like, okay, yeah, this is paced well. This is doing what it should. But they already have that foreknowledge. I'm watching this. I don't know anything about this. So I'm just watching this going, yeah, like maybe if I went back and watched it again, I'd have a different perspective on this, because now I know what it is. But the first time I'm watching it, I'm like you're leaving me hanging. There's something about the attic and a bunch of names in the attic, and they don't really lean in too hard on what that means or the history of that. A lot of this is, I would be curious to know what someone thinks of this documentary that already knows ahead of time what it is. Because think of, imagine watching Deadpool and Wolverine, and you've never seen a comic book or read a comic book in your life. You'd watch this, and a lot of the movie would be like, what? It just kind of puzzled by most of it, because a lot of that relies on foreknowledge of past movies and past IP. This movie kind of feels like it did that. I think a lot of this relies on you already knowing what the story is. And if you're like me and you have no idea what the story is, you'll just be frustrated up until probably the last half, maybe last third of the documentary, where it finally starts to come together. And it does. But the sad and frustrating thing about this is the story's important. The story's horrifying. And I think this deserves a little more care put into how the documentary is put together.
Okay. So look, Eric, for sugarcane, because the subject is so important, are you base level recommending sugarcane in your final rating?
Oh God,
Because
it's hard.
that's a very conflicting thing.
I would say definitely watch Sugarcane, knowing that it's not a great documentary. But if people watch it and get some curious looking more into the story, then maybe it's a better documentary than I'm giving it credit for. Because that's kind of what documentaries are supposed to do. It's supposed to say, here's the thing that's happening. And then, usually the thing like Happy Campers,
Hmm.
Happy Campers. Well, actually, Happy Campers is a bad example because Happy Campers is not something you can look up, because it's so contained. But there's documentaries that you watch and it gives you as much as it can within the real estate that the documentary has, which is the runtime. And then it gets you interested. Oh, I'm going to look up more of that. And then maybe you look up more of it, you realize more of it. In certain situations, maybe, oh, this thing's happening, this kind of messed up. Maybe, we can take like social action or something on that. Who knows? It's kind of this, documentaries aren't a smart bomb. They're kind of like a spray gun. They're going to hit people like me who can't do anything, but maybe they'll hit a billionaire that can make, changes and choices.
Wow, that
And
is tough.
so in that case, I would say watch Sugarcane just to get a sense of the story, and then maybe you can look up more later. But there's not. Yeah, I really wish this documentary would have been more focused on what the story was and
I
just kind
think
of
that's
lean
it.
in on that.
Well, that's very interesting. You said focus because it looks here. I'm looking at the plot summary. It goes, quote, Sugarcane illuminates the beauty of a community breaking cycles of intergenerational trauma and finding the strength to persevere. That's very broad, okay? And it says set amidst a groundbreaking investigation. It should have been more focused and more tight, right, Eric? Maybe, and
Yeah,
because yeah, there's a great documentary to be had from this subject matter. Am I
there's a great documentary in here. I think a re-edit would benefit this a lot.
okay? Okay, all right. So right now, Sugarcane has a national theatrical rollout. It's not debuting this Friday, but it's continuing to roll out into various theaters. I will put actually on the show notes a link where you can see Sugarcane if you are so inclined and interested. Eric Holmes, your rating on Sugarcane.
I'll probably go a star and a half on this, and that star and a half is specifically for the content of the documentary, or not the content of the document, the story itself,
Right.
shining light on the story itself. But the documentary, I think, falls
Okay.
far short of what it needed to be with how serious this story is and how important this story is. This documentary should have done much better, I think.
Okay. So that is 1.5 stars from Eric Holmes. It'll be interesting because Bruce Perky has also seen Sugarcane. Please listen to Bruce Perky's reviews after this episode over at Cinematic, and he just message. Yeah. Oh, be gentle with Bruce Perky. He's up in the attic right now. He was mentioning he messaged both me and Eric. Said, "Well, I'm a little bit. I have allergies this week, so he apologizes for his maybe."
Actually,
Did you give
I'm
him
an
that?
idiot.
Did you give him
No, no, I just thought
medication?
of the addict scene in Sugar Cane. I shouldn't have made that joke. It's kind of tasteless now that I think of
Oh
it.
no, 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 no.
I didn't think of that at the time, but
So we apologize, filmmakers and people who love Sugarcane, about that joke. With the attic is a running bit, but Bruce Perky, his reviews will be up on
yeah.
Sugarcane. He's also else has Bruce Perky is going to review? He's going to review
Army of Shadows.
yes, a Jean-Pierre Melville film called Army of Shadows. I mentioned it last week on the episode because it was playing in select U.S. theaters, the 4K restoration. I did a rewatch. I'm not going to review it right now because Bruce Perky is going to review it in several minutes. I specifically told Eric Holmes not to watch Army of Shadows because he's had a very busy movie watching week. Ultimately, Eric, down the line, hopefully you'll get to see Army of Shadows because it's a great, great film. It's about French resistance fighters in World War II, and it is. I did a rewatch. It gets better and better. My rating for that is 5 stars for Army of Shadows. If you're a fan of Jean-Pierre Melville's Le Samurai, aka The Samurai, Le Cercle Rouge, aka The Red Circle, by the way, Alain Delon the star of both of those films. He passed away this week. But Jean-Pierre Melville is a top-level filmmaker. Army of Shadows is my personal favorite of his. It's just, you get to see all of these French resistance fighters, maybe 5 or 6 of them or 7 of them, and you get to see how they are trying to escape the clutches of the Nazis while infiltrating their operations. Very, very well done movie. Some really interesting, iconic sequences that I don't want to spoil it, but it's one of those movies you have to see it. It's, again, stunning 4K restoration from Rialto Pictures. Bruce Purkey will have the review in moments. But I want to also add one more feature to our list. Opening Friday in theaters and on VOD August 27th is a movie called The Other Lorrains. This is a Belgian film, and it centers on Gabriel Lorenz. He's played by Olivier Rabardin. And Gabriel, he is a private investigator whose main job is to suss out whenever someone suspects their loved one or their lover is cheating on them. They hire someone like Gabriel to spy on them, get some pictures, and then case closed. One day, his niece, Jade, played by Louise Leroy, she comes into his life telling him that his twin brother, Francois, again played by Olivier Rabardin, Francois is dead. Supposedly, he died from a car accident, but maybe there were some shady operations behind his car accident. Gabriel is initially doesn't want to investigate what's going on with his late brother because supposedly they had a falling out. But lo and behold, as the movie progresses, Gabriel finds a little bit, he gets into the world of his late brother and gets to learn more about his niece, Jade. They lived a really nice life in this beautiful mansion or manor, and the rest of the movie has Gabriel as an outsider, or Gabriel, I'll just say Gabriel as an outsider, trying to figure out how his brother died. Was his brother involved in any kind of shady dealings, etc., etc.? Also in the movie is actress Kate Moran. She plays Shelby, the stepmother of his niece Jade, and Shelby is involved in some interesting criminal operations with her and a bunch of bikers who actually live in the manor as well. It's a very interesting noir, sometimes comedy situation. It rambles all over the place like I'm doing with this review. It's a weird movie, but ultimately the third act was good. I like there's a little bit of a nice twist in The Other Lorenz. It's a movie that is actually an homage to some of the great noirs of the day. And, because Gabriel Lorenz, he's slightly overweight, he's lazy, and he's a very interesting character. And to see how he ultimately figures out what happened to his brother and the conspiracy behind this family, it's interesting to watch as well. It doesn't hit all the marks. It's not a perfect film. It's running at 113 minutes. This movie could have been a tight 90 to 95-minute movie. The ending is really well done. It's a little bit uncompromising, and I really appreciated that about The Other Lorenz. Flaws aside, this is a movie it has some surreal touches as well. There's a lot of things that are going on in The Other Lorenz. I think this is a solid, straight down the middle, sunshine noir thriller with comedic elements. The Other Lorenz, again, opening on theaters Friday, August 23rd, and VOD on August 27th. Solid recommend for me. 3.5 stars for The Other Lorenz. Bruce Purkey will have his review of The Other Lorenz in moments as well. So 3.5 stars for The Other Lorenz for me. All right, that's it. We are going to close out with just final thoughts on a movie all three of us saw. Bruce will talk about it as well. But Eric, what did you think of Alien Romulus over the weekend when you saw it?
It's mostly harmless, kind of cool.
I think that's the greatest review that I've heard on Alien Romulus. It is harmless, right? Bruce, look, I haven't listened to Bruce's segment, but he really did not like Alien Romulus. Do you see why he did not like the movie? Can you see it from his POV?
Yeah. I would say this is better than the Alien Covenant. I think I might like it a little better than Aliens.
Really? Why is it better than Aliens, you think, Alien Romulus?
So with the Alien movies, not counting the Alien versus Predator is fine. I didn't watch the second one. They were fine. So those are kind of bottom of the barrel. Well, one's bottom of the barrel. The other one I didn't bother watching. But like as far as all the like Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant. Right. Alien Covenant's like at the bottom. That movie was just pretty boring to me. My favorites are Alien 3, Prometheus, Alien Resurrection, and then then it would be the
Covenant.
Aliens. And then I think Romulus sits like just above Aliens. It was just that Alien movie. They didn't try to kind of like Place of Bones. They kind of focus in on the horror aspect of it, and that was pretty cool. But it also got, and this is not a new critique. This is like there's a scene where one of the characters goes, "Get away from her." I'm like, don't do it, you bitch. I'm like, oh geez, come on.
Right.
It's like that my favorite part of Alien 3, that I think Alien 3 is probably one of my favorite Alien movies. It varies between that, Alien, and Prometheus. Like those three are like always, but Alien 3 is usually pretty much at the top. But my favorite part about Alien 3 is when they start repeating lines from Alien and Aliens, except they didn't do that. Oh no, it was its own movie. That's why I liked it. It did its own thing. But no, seriously though.
And that's how you feel about Prometheus too, because it was its own movie. Same thing.
People give Alien Resurrection a lot of crap. I like that movie. And my favorite part about Alien Resurrection was when they said, "Hey, where's Bishop?" And remember that other line we said from one of the aliens? That was wait, no, they didn't do that on there either.
Okay, so you're saying
so the Alien franchise isn't known for callbacks. I think this is kind of like a recent thing where it's like, hey, we're gonna wink at the camera and tell the audience, hey, remember this other movie that was in this franchise?
Did it annoy you?
That cool? And they said Boondock Saints 2. They did it. I love Boondock Saints. Boondock Saints 2 comes out. They did that same family show. They did that same thing where they just kept making callbacks to the original. And it's like, quit reminding me of a movie I liked better that came out before. Just be your own thing. So I think when Alien Romulus is like its own thing, I think it's really cool. I mean, there's
they should have leaned into that. They should have leaned into the originality. Even I mean,
there was some dumb stuff like the floating alien blood. And then the gravity comes back. Like we can't shoot the aliens because they have acid blood, and then it'll just melt through the hole, and then we'll all die. And then the gravity like goes away, and then they are like, "Oh, that's brilliant." Yeah, because the alien blood's just gonna float there. It's not gonna hit the ground. That kind of works. And then the gravity came back, and the blood hit the ground, and then they didn't even go back and. Actually, maybe I do like Aliens more than this one.
No, look, I mean, I think on a surface level, Alien Romulus, I saw it in theaters, and it was just a fun enough movie for me to watch.
Yeah.
I'm a big, even though I don't know the alien lore as much as well as you or Bruce have seen, I think the two installments I have not seen are Alien 3, and I've heard that if I go see Alien 3, I need to see the assembly cut instead. So
they're both good.
Oh, they're both good. Okay.
I think people's like, oh, it smiles better. And it's like, is it though? Like they're both still pretty good. Like there's extra scenes, but
you're not missing it if you don't see it.
It's not like Justice League and the Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Sure.
Like there's like whole different things that happen in Zack Snyder's version. It's like night and day difference. The Alien 3, both versions are comparable. Like one, you might like one a little better than the other, but I don't think it's like night and day difference.
Yeah, Alien Romulus, again, all the callbacks, it did annoy me watching it, but overall, it's a solid action movie. I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I had a good time at the theaters. It's not going to reach the levels of the other Alien films, but hey, I mean, I had a good time. I know Bruce, just because of that, he took it personally. Bruce took it.
I will say,
I understand
the android character in that, I hated him when he first showed up. I was like, this character is annoying as hell. And then he got the upgrade, and I'm like, I can get with this character. And then later on, he downgrades and he's back to where he was. And now I kind of like his character, his earlier character when he was annoying. Now I can kind of appreciate that a little more. So I kind of like where like the peaks and valleys his character went. There was a cameo.
Oh,
don't do that.
Well,
stop doing that.
There is not just a cameo. There is a cameo that ends up being a supporting player in the film, and just because you reminded me of that, That really annoyed me. Can you bump down my 3.5 stars to three? Three stars, a mild recommend for Alien Romulus. Go see it in the theaters, but that was
movies. Stop doing that.
Eric,
don't do it anymore.
That offended me. Really, I understand regarding the connecting the tissues.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm done with that. But what is your final rating on Alien Romulus?
You know what? The more I'm talking about it, I think I like Aliens more than this. But I will say, like, just the initial watch, I had a lot of fun with it. Sure. I'd probably watch it again. That cameo notwithstanding. And I hate that I'm giving this a higher score than Sugar King. Sugar King is so much more important.
No worries.
But I had a lot more fun with this. I'll go 3.5. I still think it's, as a whole, it still is, doesn't do dirty to the Alien franchise. So, that's got to say something to it. And it's definitely miles better than Alien Covenant. So I would give it a shot. Or, I mean, you know what? If you're watching this, probably already seen it. So
Alien Covenant, that's a story of David, man. I thought you loved David the synthetic.
I loved him in Prometheus. Alien Covenant was boring. I'm like, just let's roll credits already.
Speaking of roll credits, we are done for this cinematics episode 256. You want to say anything before we go, Eric Holmes? Because you are going to be slingshotted into. You have to watch another movie before your new set of interviews. You got to go. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, we'll be talking about Slingshot. We'll be talking of soon. It's been too long, and it's not quick enough. We will be talking about First Shift soon, and I cannot wait.
First Shift, and eventually we're going to get to an Uwe Ball director spotlight. We have so many things to do with cinematics. Next week we're doing a Patreon. We're covering what movies? We're covering The Long Good Friday, and we're also covering Dress to Kill, 2 movies from 1980. So we're doing Patreon next week for our wonderful supporters or patrons. And we have Slingshot next week and a movie called The Wasp. Eric mentioned First Shift and City of Dreams. We have a loaded schedule. That's it. We have a lot to do. You want to say goodbye, Eric Holmes? Anything you want to say to our listeners? Anything?
Yeah.
Cinematicspodcast.com.
Cinematicspodcast.com. If you need to murder someone, we have shower curtains. And it is alien acid blood. It doesn't melt through that. So if you need to line the inside of your Nostromo, grab a couple of Cinematics podcasts.
All right.
That I don't know if that's true. That has not been scientifically proven, but I'm pretty sure you can do that.
Shower curtains, hats, mugs, whatever. Horse-drawn carriage carts. Thank you. That was just for you, Mitch Burns. Finally, we are out. And of course, before we get to Bruce Purkey and his cinematic, I hope you give him some medication for those allergies. Eric Holmes, here's Claire.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining Cinematics.
Here we are again at another mini episode attached to the main episode, and I am here in the cinematic. I apologize, I am a bit sick today. Well, sick or allergy, something, so I will probably sound a little snuffly and nasally, and I probably won't sound my best, and I apologize, and I probably will have a little bit shorter reviews than normal, but we'll give it a go here and see what we got here. Today we're going to have 3 features, a documentary called Sugarcane, an older movie, 1969, a reissue that I guess it's coming back for just a real short period to the theaters called Army of Shadows. And we've also got The Other Lorenz. And on top of that, I'll have a little quick recap of my thoughts on Alien Romulus. And we'll get to that in a minute. I would like to talk longer about it, but I don't know if I'll have the energy today. Anyway, let's start today with The Other Lorenz. This is a movie from Belgium. Sorry, I can't speak correctly today. And all the deets, basically, I'm sure Greg has already talked about all the deets in the regular episode. The main characters you want to know about, though, are Gabriel, played by Olivier Rabordin. He is a twin. He's an older guy. He's a twin, and his twin brother, who is richer than him, has recently died or gone missing. No, he died. He has died. And the rich man's niece comes and finds Gabriel, our main character, and says, "Hey, I don't think that the stuff surrounding his death seems suspicious, and I don't like it, and I want you to help me solve it. You are a private detective, and you would be perfect for this." And he reluctantly follows her off to the countryside where his brother lived with his daughter Jade. Jade is the niece. Jade basically takes him there to see if they can solve the murder of his brother and her father. So this is, well, first of all, he is kind of the sad sack, rumpled, disheveled sort of private detective you'd expect, just half unshaven, probably just rolls out of bed in the clothes he's going to wear for the day, that kind of a thing. And obviously he's pretty reluctant to go on this road trip with this girl he doesn't know and be dragged into this mystery about his brother. And he just doesn't seem, he's not enthusiastic about the whole affair, but reluctantly he goes along. Now, these kind of movies kind of usually go a couple ways. It's kind of a noir detective sort of mystery is the way it's kind of presented. So either these kind of movies either are super twisty with a whole bunch of characters and a whole bunch of, people backstabbing each other and, some kind of a MacGuffin, blah, 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 blah. And the fun a lot of times is in the banter and in the kind of the twists and turns of the story. Or another type of this movie tends to be you've got a mystery that itself is kind of a MacGuffin. Once again, I bring up something like Big Lebowski, where the mystery itself kind of matters, but only to move the plot forward. And the real point of the story is to kind of hang out with these characters that you really like and are really interesting, and you get to know the characters more and more and more as the movie progresses. Now, I think that is the approach this movie's trying to take, that second approach, this where you're basically hanging out a whole bunch with Gabrielle and Jade. And the idea is almost like he's almost acting like a surrogate father, because obviously he looks like his brother. They're twins. So she is kind of having a way to kind of deal with unresolved connections and disconnections with her father through Gabrielle. And Gabrielle is getting to deal with some unresolved family issues and issues in life himself. To complicate matters, back at the manor, because his brother was rich, he's got his wife, the stepmom for Jade, and she's, kind of possibly up to some nefarious activities. She's still camped out in their manor, along with, it seems to be a whole biker gang, which definitely should raise some red flags that she just has a biker gang at her disposal. That's kind of interesting. And then also in this mix, you have a couple of kind of older, semi-bumbling detectives that kind of come in and out of the story that are around the area where the mystery is going on. And they seem to either be trying to solve the mystery or maybe not trying too hard, but we just kind of go in and out and get their banter from here and there. Overall, I think your enjoyment of this is going to really depend upon whether you kind of connect with the characters you're presented with. I found it not super engaging. I was really on board at the beginning because it looked good. It was really well filmed. I liked the way it was shot. I kind of liked the setup. I was ready to kind of settle in and get to really enjoy these characters. But as it went on, I just felt it was just a little too lackadaisical in its approach. It just really just wanted to hang out and meander, and there wasn't enough really interesting character stuff there to really hold me. I like the approach. I see what they were doing, but it didn't quite grab me. And it did not have a good resolution either. For me, it seemed pretty unsatisfying as far as the way it concluded as well. So for me, I'm probably going to go like 2 stars on this, unfortunately. Like I said, mileage may vary for other people. I just wanted it to be a little more engaging character-wise. Okay, next up, we've got Sugarcane. This is a documentary directed by Emily Cassie and Julien Brave Noisecat. Julien Brave Noisecat also is in front of the camera in a lot of this documentary. He's kind of the de facto person we're following. And we do meet a lot of other people, but probably one of the main people you meet is his father, which is Eddie Archie Noisecat. Now, this is in British Columbia, and it is in they're the part of the William Lakes First Nation, so indigenous people in British Columbia. And this whole movie is about the Catholic Church setting up these schools, these mission schools, which you probably heard of mission schools. They have them in America too, where basically the whole point of these mission schools was to, take Native children and pull them into these religious schools and to, deprogram them, quote, into becoming good Christian children instead of heathens, by their point of view. They cut their hair, pull away all their culture, force them to worship the church of whatever church it is. In this case, it was Catholic Church, and a lot of times it was a Catholic church. And you can probably see that there's a lot of damage done to communities through that, and damage done to the cultural heritage going forward as these children are kind of basically abused into this new belief system. So what this particular movie though does is it's really following the attempts to uncover the systematic abuse slash, well, sexual abuse. You can imagine that's there as well because of the Catholic Church, and that legacy is involved in this, but also just the disappearance and the possible murder of many of these children throughout time. For example, they're out there trying to scan the ground next to the old property where these mission schools were in this area that we're particularly watching. And they're trying to find unmarked graves that may represent where some of these bodies literally and figuratively have been buried over the years. And throughout this movie, you're watching those efforts. You're getting to talk to some of the survivors of those mission schools that are now obviously much more elderly. They're probably 60s, 70s, 80s, in that range. Some of them are really hesitant to talk about what happened. Some of them talk a little more openly. And then it also focuses, like I said, on these two father-son, main kind of threads where you can kind of see the son who's now trying to investigate this actively and is trying to really capture and maintain their culture, while the father has had a much more damaged life and why and how that damage occurred. Really good documentary, obviously really heavy stuff, but within all that heaviness, there's also a lot of moments to just sit with the various people and just see their lives, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worst. I think this is a National Geographic production. So this might be one of those movies that you have access to pretty soon, because National Geographic often will have a few actual screenings, but then it'll end up on public broadcast systems or other really accessible outlets. So I would keep a lookout for Sugar Cane. I'll probably go 4 stars on this. I'm not sure what the guys will think of this. I don't know if both of them watched it. I would think they would at least like it. I think they would at least acknowledge that it's a good documentary. It's just a matter of whether they are fully engaged by it or not. I think it's a pretty engaging documentary, though. Okay, the last but not least is Army of Shadows. Now, this is a movie from 1969, directed by Jean-Pierre Melville, who is a very, obviously he's a storied director and really beloved director from French cinema. I don't have a huge experience with a lot of his work, so this is good for me to have a reason to watch it. I think this is probably a restored version of this movie, because I was reading some of the history, and it sounds like a lot of the prints had been lost, and the prints that remained were pretty damaged. So I think they had to painstakingly go through and refresh the prints. So I think what we're seeing now is about as good as you can get for Army of Shadows. There's a whole bunch of people in this, but the main characters, it's got Philippe Gerbier, Philip Gerbier, who's played by Lino Ventura. He is, if anything, he's kind of your de facto lead in this movie, because you do follow him almost everywhere. And then you have Mathilde, who is played by the very, very well-known Simone Signoret. I think I know her from Diabolique, if I remember correctly, but she's been in obviously a ton of things. This is from 1969. I think I mentioned that before, but this takes place mostly in the 40s during the Nazi occupation of France, when there was a French resistance. And this is the dramatized, fairly true to life story of actual key members of the French resistance. So it's one of those movies where, at the end, they'll have like the what happened to them. A lot of times that's fictional, but sometimes that's actual. You do get that at the end of this movie, where it's like you've been following probably, I want to say, consistently 4 to 5, maybe 6 characters throughout the movie. And at the end, you get to find out what became of each of those people, after the war or during the war, like how their lives were. So taking that into account, this isn't like a beginning to end French resistance. This is like a period in the middle of it. You're plopped in, you watch a certain part of that experience, and then you drop out. And obviously that resistance, that experience continued after the end of the movie. So what is the key about this movie is, why I think it's kind of unique, is, so you think of the movies like the 50s and the 40s, when they're doing war movies or like spy, this is kind of espionage / war movie, drama too as well. A lot of times these movies will be a little more heightened, The characters will be a little more broad. This is very subdued, and that could be a negative for some people as well, because they might want it to be a little more action oriented. They might want it to be a little more, bold. But this is very like everything's the colors, just soaked out of it. It's gray. It's very matter of fact. And it seems like it's probably closer to what happened to a lot of these people and how they worked in the resistance than you would see in most movies, because they're not over traumatizing things hardly at all. That being said, they do a great job of setting up stakes in various segments. The very beginning, you've got our main character that I mentioned before, Gerbier, and he is just living his life. And like a lot of people, if they're suspected of being in the resistance at all, they just get rounded up and put into camps, prison camps. And he's one of those people who gets put in a prison camp. And right out of the gate, this becomes a little bit of a stuck in prison, have to get out of prison story for probably the first, 25, 30 minutes. So this is one of those movies where it kind of keeps changing, because obviously I'm not giving away anything. The resistance continues, so you do see more of him. A few highlights without saying what happens exactly. They do a great job of setting up stakes, and really dire stakes, where, for example, you have two characters at one point in a hallway sitting on chairs with a German guard standing next to them, being guarded so they can't leave. And you see them trying to figure out if there's a way that they can escape that situation. So you get the stakes, you get the situation, and the tension right there is just built into that scene. And that's really interesting how that plays out. There's another scene where someone is considered to be a traitor, and several members of the resistance have to take care of that traitor and possibly question him, possibly torture him, who knows. The way that plays out is really interesting, because not only do you see what they have to do to survive and to continue in that situation, but you see the moral quandary they have, and you see how they're kind of faced with the facts of what they're actually doing. It's not just like this, not just this fantasy of being this, resistance, la resistance. It's kind of the dirty, bloody, really hardcore stuff they have to do within that world. It's a really good movie. I guess I'll go 4.5. I don't know why I wouldn't go 5 on this. I don't know. Maybe maybe it's a little bit, like I talked about before, maybe a little bit slow. But then again, I think on another watch, I would probably put that aside, because I would just watch the details. Really, really good. Great details, great acting, really well produced. I'll say 4.5 for now. But yeah, this could easily be 5-star classic going forward. Okay, sorry, I'm kind of speeding through this today. Last is I went to the theater and saw Alien Romulus. Now, I could go through a whole review here. There might be spoilers in here, so beware. Go through a whole review here. I generally think people are loving this movie quite a bit. I think they're liking it as a popcorn version of the Alien franchise. You go to an Alien movie, you want to see a bunch of alien stuff, you want to see facehuggers, you want to see, xenomorphs, you want to see eggs and acid blood and, people having to survive and so on and so forth. And it does all those things. And I think, why did I not like it? I think that's probably more helpful, because if some of you are thinking about going to see it and you may like it, or you might be on the fence as well. I think the problem I had with this movie is that if it had just been hey, we're going to just come up with a situation that forces a group of people into a setting where they're stuck and they have to escape with some aliens, and let's, wind it up and let it go, I think I would have been fine with that. It might not have been my favorite Alien movie, but I would have been like, that's a cool little Alien movie. That's a cool Alien movie with some neat effects and some neat cinematography, which it has all those things. It gave me what I wanted. It hits all the beats, all the tropes that you expect from an Alien movie. If that's all the movie did, I think I would probably be like, 3.5, maybe even 4 stars on this movie. Probably be middle of the pack. I would probably like it quite a bit. But what this movie does is it takes that and then it just slathers it with member berries and slathers it with visual recreations of moments from the other movies and ideas from the other movies and characters from the other movies and lines of dialogue from the other movies. It's like they really can't trust that the basic setup of an Alien movie is enough to entertain people without having to give them like all of this stuff to just make sure they understand, like, remember all those things that happened? Wasn't that cool? Don't you feel awesome because now you've seen that or heard that line? And that every time that happened, it just brought me more and more out of the movie. So by the time I was probably, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes into this movie, I was starting to fall out more and more and more. And by the time they brought in once again, I told you there'd be spoilers. By the time they brought in the Rook Ash hybrid character or whatever, it was just like, wow, no. You are literally reanimating the corpse of a dead actor just for this role. Plus, I read that originally was not what they were going to do there. They originally had it as it was going to be Mother, just the operating system of the ship that would be essentially filling that role. But instead, they had to have this, recognizable character from the franchise. They had to bring them in. And then, like any old white guy, I need to have a conspiracy theory. I think conspiracy theories are kind of what we do these days, right? Which I hate. I hate conspiracy theories. I think the world's run by them right now. But I'm going to throw one out there anyway. See how I am? Say I hate them, and I'm going to do it anyway. What if this movie is Disney cooking the frog, and we are the frog? What if they're testing the waters with this movie to see if we will lap up AI written and produced and created movies? Now, I know that's not what this is, but think about it. They basically decided, oh, we're going to really tout the practical effects. We're going back to the old way of shooting this and blah, 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 blah. They touted that a lot, right? All the while, they're making the story as derivative as humanly possible. So you can appreciate the technical stuff in there, but you're kind of dazzled by that, and you're forgetting like how there is nothing, like no style piece, plot piece, character piece, story piece that isn't basically cannibalized from one of the other Aliens movies. So if not, in thinking about that, imagine this, like Disney could be like, if we basically made this exact same movie, but we had the technology to essentially just type in the elements we want of this movie, and then it would just steal it from all the other movies like AI does, steal all of the looks and the sounds and the dialogue and all that, and cobble it together into this new thing and call it a new Alien movie. That's essentially what you get here. You just get it made by real people. But there's only one step away from what the AI would do with this movie. And essentially, you'd probably get almost the same result. And that's one of the reasons it kind of just drove me crazy. It just feels like they just are picking the bones and just assembling this. I think I mentioned it before, assembling this Frankenstein puppet of a movie. And that's essentially what you've got here. It's like all these things, let's get them all together. Let's push it all together. I mean, at one point, they literally have the original xenomorph from the original Alien movie. In this movie, has its harpoon still in it, and is hanging from the ceiling like a chandelier. It's like, hey, remember that? Now it's just a prop setting. It doesn't even have its own movie anymore. So that's why I was really, I think, annoyed by this movie. Yeah, last thing, talking about the AI and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I know that's old man worried about AI, but I think the idea that they would love to have us all accept movies that they wouldn't have to pay actors for, they wouldn't have to get all these actual practical effects. They could just have something where they could just have somebody plug in enough prompts to get a result that people would pay money for. They would love to do that so much. And the last thing I would think about is this. Disney, more than anybody, I think probably the most consistently, has resurrected dead actors or existing actors that aren't that age anymore, has resurrected them and thrown them in their movies purely for fan appeal. They did it with Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian, young version of Luke Skywalker. They did it with Carrie Fisher, obviously, in the Star Wars movies. They did it with Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin, in the Rogue One movie. And of course, in this movie, they do it with, oh my gosh, I forgot his name. The guy who plays Ash. He's an awesome actor. He was also in the Lord of the Rings movies. Sure, they might get permission to the family, but still, it just feels gross. Anyway, I'm 2 stars in this movie. I think it's going to age poorly. Oh, I didn't mention Kaylee Spaney's great. David Johnson from Rye Lane, great. They should have been in a better movie. 2 stars. I think it'll age poorly. I think 6 months from now, a lot of people are going to look back from this movie and think, I had a great time with that movie. And the more they watch it, the more people are going to be like, there's nothing here, man. There's nothing here. Sure, it's a great if you want to throw it on the TV while you're doing something else and just cooking or something. But this is not a good Alien movie. I'm sorry, it's not. Nothing original. Okay, I babbled on enough. This is my sick head is not working well. Anyway, talk to you all next week. Hopefully we have some more great movies to bring you. Of all the movies I saw this week, once again, I would say either Sugarcane or Army of Shadows. If you've never seen that, is a great kind of a go back and watch a classic movie kind of movie. All right, guys, talk to you soon.